My workload has skyrocketed over the years. I used to think 80 hours a week was intense, but now it's more like 120 hours. I wake up, dive straight into work, and then go to bed only to start all over again, 7 days a week with no time off. That's become my reality. And when I say work, I'm not just referring to mundane tasks. I'm talking about constantly innovating, pushing boundaries, leading two world-changing companies, and figuring out how to solve some of the world's most challenging problems. This pace has been relentless, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. I know it's not sustainable long-term, but right now there's no other option. The expectations are high, there's no room for hesitation when you're building something from the ground up, especially in industries that are, quite frankly, resistant to change. But it's not about the accolades or the praise, it's about seeing the bigger picture. My journey hasn't been about getting recognition, it's been about making a mark on history and ensuring that future generations can enjoy the fruits of this work. The criticism is constant. It's easy for people to criticize from the sidelines, to look at what you're doing and find fault with your every move. But what people don't see is the effort that goes into it. They don't see the sleepless nights, the uncertainty, the risks, and the sacrifices. Yes, I've faced enormous challenges, but I've always believed that the obstacles we face today are the very things that will enable us to build something extraordinary tomorrow. I think about the kind of future we're trying to create, especially with Tesla. I've heard people say that electric vehicles, EVs, will never catch on, that the infrastructure isn't there, or that the market is too small. But the reality is, Tesla didn't just make a car that was better for the environment, it revolutionized the entire automotive industry. The big players didn't see it coming. Now, almost every major automaker is pouring billions of dollars into EVs because they know they can't ignore the wave anymore. It's a major shift, but it's only the beginning. My ultimate goal with Tesla is to make sustainable energy the default, not the exception. We're working tirelessly to make that happen. Then there's SpaceX. The mission of SpaceX isn't just to make rockets, it's about making humanity a multi-planetary species. I often tell people that the Earth is an incredible place, but it's only one place in the vast universe. As beautiful and special as Earth is, it's finite. Humanity's future depends on us becoming a space-faring civilization, and that's what SpaceX is all about. The stakes couldn't be higher. It's not just about getting to Mars, it's about ensuring humanity's survival over the long term. The challenges we face with getting to Mars are immense, but I've always believed that with enough persistence we can overcome them. I think about how short our time on Earth has been when compared to the planet's vast history. Earth is over 4 billion years old. Human civilization, as we know it, is only 5,000 years old, which is just a tiny fraction of the history of our planet. That makes you realize how fleeting our time here really is. That's why I think it's crucial for humanity to stretch beyond Earth and ensure that we continue to exist, no matter what happens. This fragile existence we have is something worth preserving. I often reflect on how far I've come. I remember the early days when I was living in a tiny office in Silicon Valley, working late into the night just to keep my startup afloat. The roof leaked, there was barely enough room for a desk, and I lived off takeout and coffee. But there was something deeply motivating about those days. I knew that I had to keep going, no matter how hard it seemed. Even back then, when I was working on Zip2 and X.com, which later became PayPal, I always believed in the power of technology to change the world. I also had a laser focus on execution. If you're trying to build something big, you can't afford to sit back and wait for things to happen. You have to be proactive and solve problems as they arise. When my brother and I started Zip2, we didn't even have an apartment. We rented a small office, and I spent my days coding and building the business. At night, we slept on the office floor. My girlfriend at the time would occasionally crash on the couch. It wasn't glamorous, but it was necessary. I learned early on that when you're chasing something big, the sacrifices are real. You have to work harder, put in more hours, and sometimes face discomfort and uncertainty. But the payoff comes in ways you don't always see coming. In those early days, there was a relentless drive to keep moving forward, no matter what. I've learned that this kind of work ethic isn't for everyone. Not everyone is cut out to sacrifice so much of their personal life for a larger cause. But for me, it was never a choice. It was a necessity. When I hear people complain about 40-hour work weeks or feeling burnt out after a few long days, I have to remind myself that the work I've done and continue to do is all in pursuit of something far greater than myself. It wasn't always easy. People used to laugh at me when I said that electric cars were the future. The automotive giants, the naysayers, they all told me it was impossible. They said it was a pipe dream. But I knew that to move the world forward, to make real change, you have to challenge conventional wisdom. You have to disrupt the status quo. I've never been afraid to fail. The only way you can truly fail is if you quit. SpaceX faced similar resistance. When I started SpaceX, the aerospace industry told me that private companies would never be able to compete with NASA or established aerospace giants like Boeing and Lockheed Martin. They said that a small startup would never make it to space, let alone land rockets back on Earth. But we did it. The Falcon 9 rocket is now a testament to the fact that with enough perseverance, you can accomplish the impossible. We've made space travel more affordable, more sustainable, and more accessible than ever before. And we're just getting started. I often think about my son Griffin. He's got an incredible mind. He's the kind of kid who questions everything and thinks deeply about the world around him. I've been fascinated by how he thinks. When I look at the way he processes information, I'm reminded of the importance of nurturing curiosity in children. It's this kind of thinking that will shape the next generation of leaders, innovators, and thinkers. And that's why I believe so strongly in education and in giving kids the tools to explore the world in ways that were never available to us. When I think about my childhood, it's hard to forget how different I was from most kids. I've always been more of an introvert, and I've always been consumed by ideas and thoughts. Growing up, I would read for hours, diving into books on technology, science, and history. I didn't have many friends, and I spent a lot of time alone, thinking about how the world worked and how it could be better. People often ask me about my experiences in school. I'll be honest, I wasn't particularly good at fitting in with the system. I wasn't great at following rules or engaging in traditional classroom activities. But what I did love was learning, and I still do. I've learned that sometimes the best way to disrupt industries is by thinking differently and embracing failure as a necessary part of the process. The conventional approach is often too rigid, too bound by existing norms and expectations. It's tempting to follow the well-worn path, to stick with what's worked in the past, but if you really want to make an impact, you have to be willing to chart a new course. And that requires taking risks that most people aren't willing to take because they fear failure. But here's the thing, failure isn't the end of the road. It's often just a step on the path to success. When you push the boundaries, you're going to encounter setbacks. The road to success is rarely straight. There will be obstacles you didn't anticipate, unforeseen challenges that will test your resolve. At Tesla, we've faced those challenges countless times. When we first started working on electric vehicles, most people were convinced that EVs were a dead end. There were concerns about range, charging infrastructure, cost, and public skepticism. And for a long time, it seemed like no matter how hard we tried, we weren't making the kind of progress we needed. I remember vividly the early days when we struggled to produce cars at scale. There were moments when the production line would break down and we'd fall behind on orders. At one point, we even faced the possibility of running out of money. The company was on the brink of collapse, but instead of giving up, we kept fighting. We learned from our failures and kept iterating. Every setback was a lesson, and we used those lessons to improve our process, our products, and our strategy. In all of this, I've never lost sight of my ultimate goal: to make the world a better place. Whether it's through Tesla's mission to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy, or SpaceX's mission to make humanity a multiplanetary species, my goal has always been to create something larger than myself. It's about leaving a lasting legacy, a future where humanity continues to grow, evolve, and thrive.